Hi guys, Team SBS here, our first Q&A video. If you don't know who I am, I'm Coach Luke. And if we start with Dan, if you introduce yourself.
I'm Coach Danny.
Cool. And
I'm Coach Ali.
cool, we'll keep it short and sweet so we can get straight down to business.
Yeah.
Okay, first question was from Derek Endicott. Apologise if I get your names incorrect. The question was, is it a good/bad idea to implement a short fast in the beginning of the day? Say not eat until 10 a.m. for a bodybuilder dieting for a contest as a means to stay more satiated, satiation reasons during the later part of the day. So how we're going to work this, guys, we've all got a question each, and first one's for me, Luke, and Ali and Dan will have their input as well. So my answer, Derek, would be, is it a bad idea? No. I mean, a 10 a.m. fast is not really a long fast, depending on when you was your last meal of the evening. And another factor would be when you get up. If you get up at maybe 6 a.m. and you're working or you're training at 7 a.m., if training fasted means that it would affect your performance in the gym, then I probably wouldn't recommend it. But if it helps with adherence and means that you can stick with your macros, I mean, the overall important thing is actually getting your overall caloric intake in. And if for you that means fast until 10 a.m., then do it. But yeah, just some of the things would be times a day you're training, if it has a negative effect on your performance in the gym if you're training beforehand. But overall, if it works for you and it's doing the job, I'd say stick with it. Any input, guys?
No, nothing extra to say there. Yeah.
No, cool, excellent. So hopefully that answered your question, Derek. Next one's for Ali. So this is from Mike Wong. Mike pretty much asked all the questions of our Q&A, so we could call it the Mike Wong Q&A session. So cheers, Mike. And Mike's first question was, what do you do for muscle activation for each muscle group? And he asked particularly for squats, deadlifts, pulling and pushing. So quite a general question there. So Ali, if you could answer that, please.
Yeah, I was a little bit confused as to exactly what was being asked, but in terms of activating muscles before going for the big compound lifts, I think it's definitely a good idea. So I would always have people do things like dynamic stretching, always a good idea, and then just often several warm-up sets is a really good way, especially if you're doing some heavy-duty strength training. Always just slowly ramping up, a few reps per set before you hit your working sets is often the best way of just making sure that everything's firing properly. There's no niggles that you're trying to work through, and just sticking with that, really. I mean, it depends on the person as well and the situation you're in. If you're going super heavy, then obviously you need more warm-up sets to get everything firing and activated properly, and you just have to kind of play around with it, really. But I'd start with dynamic stretching. Once you've done your initial warm-up, should get things activated nicely, and then just ramp up the warm-up sets bit by bit.
Cool. Dan, anything to add to that?
No, I agree. But if you've been doing too much activation, sometimes that can hinder your working sets if you're doing too much. That's all I've seen. So just make sure that you're hitting what you need to hit and not doing too much in terms of warm-up.
Yeah, just sort of making sure like the RPE scale's low and you're not exerting too much effort on your warm-up sets. Another thing I've got to think about as well is if you're spending a load of time mobilising, foam rolling, and then it eats into your workout time. I know some people which sort of warm up for like 30-40 minutes, and then it means the actual training sessions cut short because of that. So maybe if you have got any imbalances or stuff you need to work on, do that outside the gym, like foam roll. It doesn't necessarily have to be before the workout. It could be early in the morning or in the evening sometime.
Yeah, I always make sure people never feel taxed on their warm-up sets. If you feel like you're working hard on a warm-up, it's pretty much a working set, and you've pushed it beyond the point where you should be then, I think.
Cool, excellent. Okay, Mike Wong's question number 2. This is for you, Dan. What are good macro ratios for muscle gain and fat loss?
Okay, well, this is obviously a loaded question. Yeah. So, the general rules of thumb are when you're in a deficit and you're trying to lose body fat, you're going to want that protein high, starting with about 1 gram per pound or 2.2 grams per kilo. And as your deficit increases and your body fat drops, then just ramping that up as necessary. And also, if you're going into, say, a muscle building phase, then you won't need quite as much protein because of the amount of food that you're eating from fats and carbs. Talking about carbs, so if you're going into a dieting phase, usually people will cut back on their carbs as it's the easiest thing to eat and it's the easiest thing to overeat. But I tend to cut back on both at the same time, so a little bit of fat, a little bit of carbs, so we're getting quite a good balance, and then there's not too much of a disparity between macros. Just what I posted a Facebook post on actual dieting competitive bodybuilders, and it showed that their IGF-1 and insulin levels were more correlated to lean body mass accretion and maintenance. So a drop in IGF and insulin leads to a greater lean body mass loss. So that might be something to think about. So keep your carbs as high as you can while still losing body fat. And I suppose that goes generally, eat as much as you can while still progressing. And when you're gaining muscle, you want to keep those carbs and fat quite high to make sure that you're getting enough calories in and creating a surplus. So yeah, a little bit all over the place, but it's quite a broad question, isn't it? So.
Yeah, so just next time, guys, when asking questions, the more specific you can be, the better we'll be able to deliver our answers as well. So just for next time. Ali, did you have anything to add to that, or
no, not at all.
I think Dan covered it all. Top job, Dan. Okay, Mike 1, part 3. Do you mix strength and hypertrophy, or do phases of either? So what we'll do is I'll start off. We'll go with Ali and Danny to see if we all differ. I tend to, at the moment, again, I never like either one or the other. It depends on the person, what their training goal is, what adaptation they're looking for. So if they're looking to actually improve a lift, the strength from the lift on a specific lift as well, I'd make sure that the frequency they're performing that lift is quite high throughout the week, maybe 3 to 4 times a week. Just making sure that using a periodized approach, that they're getting optimal recovery as well as performance. I like to do something similar to Lane Norton's fat system, where maybe like on a Monday and Tuesday doing like an upper lower body split, with starting off with like a heavy compound, maybe 3 to 5 reps, longer rest period, and then going into more of like the 6 to 8 rep range, and predominantly stick to just compound moves on maybe them days. And then on maybe like a Thursday or Friday, doing a more of the sort of hypertrophy rep range, 8 to 12 reps, and then some, again, a mixture of compounds and more isolation exercises, and then going into sort of the higher rep range. So we're targeting all those, the muscle fibre types, and looking at the different mechanisms, muscle hypertrophy, which are mechanical tension, metabolic stress, and muscle damage. So to sum it up, yes and no, depends on the person and a time frame and what adaptation they're actually looking to get. So Ali, your thoughts?
Yeah, again, it just depends on exactly what that person's looking for. I find some people tend to enjoy their training more if it's more of an undulating periodization. So you're kind of in a similar way to that Lane Norton system. You're looking at one type of training early in the week, which is the stuff you want to be more well rested for. I think that really heavy lifts, which are often quite taxing, and then the sort of more hypertrophy phase later in the week. I find especially for people who are quite busy, work quite well, because you've then got, instead of say 3 or 4 days a week of intense, very heavy lifting, you've got your your 2 days a week of the lifting that's incredibly draining because it's so heavy, up near the upper parts of your 1 rep max percentage. And then when you do go to the hypertrophy training, it's a little bit easier then. The intensity is a bit lower, and yeah, it depends. I mean, some people prefer big blocks, and I think if someone's able to commit to training properly and hard in periodized blocks, then I'd probably err towards that. But again, depends.
Dan?
Yeah, I've not got much to add. I suppose it totally depends. But yes, I do mixed strength and hypertrophy phases, and I also do them separately. So it totally depends.
I think over the long run there, I mean, there may not be much difference, but I think, yeah, if someone's definitely looking to just improve their strength, then doing a block mesocycle would probably be the best bet. But again, by daily undulating periodization, you can again work a full spectrum. And what I tend to do as well is increase the volume nearer to the end of the week. So I know they may have like Saturday and Sunday to recover as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Rather than starting off the week and just sort of increasing the volume. And again, everyone has different tolerances to different volumes. So just find out what works for that person. So I think we answered that one quite thoroughly. Mike, part 4. We're done now. No, we've got one more, Mike. This is where, if we go with Ali, so what supplements do you think are particularly beneficial other than whey, creatine, etc., i.e. digestive enzymes, probiotics, HCl, and that's it, Ali. So if you could tell us what supplements you feel are beneficial.
Yeah, I think other than whey and creatine, I think, you know, the other main sort of one which most people would recommend, especially during this time of the year, vitamin D. Although, you know, a lot of the time you see people just taking vitamin D, willy-nilly. They don't do anything like blood tests. They don't have much of a clue exactly what's going on. But you know, although it's pretty much impossible that you're going to push yourself into an unsafe range. Yeah, I mean, between 2,000, 4,000 IUs vitamin D a day is probably quite a good idea during winter months. Magnesium is another one I like to often recommend to people, because the amount of times I've totted up the micronutrients in a client's diet or something, and they've been very slightly short on magnesium, you know, I'd suggest chucking that in, and some people find it helps with sleep and relaxation. But then again, a good multivitamin should have a decent form of magnesium, such as magnesium citrate in it anyway. And you know, a multivitamin is another good one, just as and you'll see it referred to as like an insurance policy, just to make sure that you are covering all your bases. And that's probably especially useful when dieting anyway. With the other ones Mike looks at, well, he suggests digestive enzymes. To be honest, I don't really know much about any specific enzymes in terms of supplementing with them. I know you can get all sorts of goofy ones, like ones that help you break down gluten, and ones that are supposed to help digest protein and all that sort of thing. But you know, unless you've got a serious digestive issue and you've had a practitioner tell you what to take, then I can't really comment, to be honest. And a similar story for probiotics. I know there's some evidence for the probiotics helping things like skin conditions to do, like eczema and things like that. But you know, which specific strain of bacteria you're using and for how long and at what dosage, again, it just depends on the individual. As for the betaine hydrochloride supplements, I myself used to take them for a while when I was full pro, and
2 weeks ago, no.
Yeah, but I found that the whole look for the stomach burning or the warm sensation in the stomach to just be a complete load of rubbish. I ended up popping 10 of them, feeling nothing, and then coming across something I remember, which was supposedly written by a gastroenterologist or whatever it is on the internet, saying that if you can feel your stomach burning, you're probably damaging the lining of it. So with all the stuff to do with weak stomach acid levels and hydrochloride supplements, there's not nearly enough good information or data to make any sort of judgment on that. In my opinion, I don't see what the point is experimenting with it when you can't even accurately diagnose your stomach acid levels without going to the hospital anyway. So apart from the vitamin D and the multivitamin, then the only one left which is really worth adding in is probably omega-3. As I'm sure you guys would probably agree. I think a few of them a day, if you're not eating oily fish a few times a week, is just a good idea to keep your levels at the point where you do get the benefits from the omega-3 in the diet.
Cool, excellent. Dan, anything to add?
Apart from that, the only thing that I tend to use is, apart from the aspartic acid that we all used to use, but yeah. The only thing I've used with people is krill oil, and that's got a little bit of evidence to suggest that it's going to alleviate some of the PMS symptoms, and I've actually had some people say that it helps, so that might be a good one for women, but I don't think Mike Wong will be too bothered about the PMS. But yeah, apart from that, I've not seen anything good on like probiotics. The efficacy isn't there, apart from in extreme cases. Digestive enzymes, same thing. HCl, same thing. So yeah, there isn't too much other than that, and the fish oil that Ali has suggested. So yeah, absolutely.
Cool. I think you both answered that thoroughly. So we'll move on to the next question. This one's for Dan from Peter Coles. In reality, how bad is having a few beers in a week in relation to gains? All about the games.
Yeah. Well, in reality, obviously it depends on the amount, and he says a few. So a few a week is not going to do too much. There is some research on alcohol's effect on testosterone, and it's actually quite well fleshed out in that Lean Gains article from a few years ago by Martin Berkham.
Yeah, good article. I always send that to, if I know a client signs out and they like a drink, it's like, right, just read this article.
yeah, and he goes on to say, 120 grams of alcohol, or the equivalent to 10 beers, will lower testosterone by 23% for up to 16 hours after drinking. So it isn't going to be that much of a difference or change. So a few beers, yeah, absolutely go for it. If it's going to keep you on your diet the rest of the time, then there's a lot worse things that you could do to mess up those gains, bro.
Cool. Hopefully that answered it, Peter. Next one, I'll answer this one from Angus. Hello, Angus. He's always commenting on our posts. We appreciate that. Keep up the good work. Question is the possibility of increasing strength while dieting and/or maintaining for a novice trainee. He's put in brackets 12 months good training. A few factors. Again, 12 months. Again, not a novice trainee, so you're probably still in that just past that honeymoon period of being a newbie. So your gains, you still have a lot of potential. You're not quite near that ceiling yet. A few factors to take into account is, again, what type of training you have been doing. If you have been doing strength training or not. People tend to when they their main goal is to increase muscle size or drop fat and increase muscle time at the same time. So yeah, people tend to neglect the strength training rep range too much. So looking at how experienced are you at your compounds and your strength training. Again, another thing to take into account is the actual deficit you're on. The more severe your deficit, and maybe the less carbohydrates you have, the more it's going to have an impact on your strength. From personal experience, I've got quite a bit now. Most of my guys, even if they've been training 2 to 3 years, they will always continue to improve their strength, just through careful planning, making sure that the diet's not going one extreme to the next, and then just making sure that everything's progressively overloading each week. So I can't see, from just 12 months of training, I think you'll still be able to, you won't maybe be able to make the best gains in terms of strength, but you'll definitely continue to at least maintain the strength. if not from experience, you would actually increase it slightly as well. So yeah, that's my answer. Ali, anything to add?
Yeah, I especially agree with the point about the carbs. I think I made the mistake last year of going on a cut myself and then decreasing my carbs too much, and my strength did dip, and that was rectified just by tweaking things slightly. And I think, yeah, you'll definitely gain some strength when you cut if you're not going to town on the volume in your sessions. I think when you are in a deficit, you can't cope with the same kind of volume at all in a strength training session. But if the intensity stays high, there's no reason you can't increase strength. And yeah, just don't be too silly or expect too much. But like Luke said, yeah, you will probably increase a bit. At least same.
Yeah, I think another thing, if you're looking at pure strength training as well, you're looking at energy systems, you're looking at your phosphocreatine system as well.
Yeah.
So you won't really be tapping into your glycogen stores as well. But people, again, when they tend to do a strength session, again, it could be maximum strength. Do you know what I mean? It could be hypertrophy strength range. So I'm just taking it as sort of more of like your 1 to 5 reps. So again, yeah, if you're, when I tried intermittent fasting, well, I still do intermittent fasting now. Now most of my days sitting on a laptop. So my activity levels are a lot less than they were before. Yeah, when I tried that intermittent fasting and I was training 4 or 5 times a week, I seemed to be quite good strength training wise. As soon as I started raising the rep ranges and the volume, that's when maybe like the first set I'll be okay. But in terms of that endurance on the multiple sets, I end up seeing like a negative decline quite rapidly in my strength, especially like on exercise like a pull up as well.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, I felt that as well. It's kind of unpleasant.
So again, everyone's different. Try it out and see how you go. Dan, anything to add?
No, I was going to hit on the same point that Ali did. It's about volume. It's very much dependent on volume, especially if you're in a massive calorie deficit, or quite a relatively large one. You're not going to hit that volume with the same amount of weight that you were doing whilst maintaining even. So do keep an eye on that and just make sure you're getting that progressive overload. And I can't see any reason why you won't gain strength.
Yeah, I mean, what you've got to look at as well is absolute strength and relative strength as well.
Yeah.
So you think as your body weights, everyone thinks like progressive overload, you have to do more weight each week. Well, if you done 100 kg 10 reps and you weighed 100 kg and then you done 100 kg 10 reps and you weighed 98 kg, well, that's a slight progressive overload. So taking into account relative strength as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, just Angus, just make sure you keep a training log so you can look, and also every time you go into a session what you've done previously. You may have some really bad days. Maybe don't try for PBs them days, just try and maintain. And then again, look, if you start seeing a trend, maybe you might want to drop a set off or two. Just maintain the intensity of the weight on the bar and maybe drop a set off or two.
Yeah.
So, right, we've got the last question and we had to finish it off on Mike again. So, Ali, if we start with you, how and when to use a belt properly?
Yeah, I think a weightlifting belt is definitely of use if you're really gunning for top end strength and your interests lie in powerlifting or maybe Olympic lifting. It does kind of help increase abdominal pressure. So I think I seem to remember reading that will help lessen shear forces on the spine, or it was either shear or compressive forces on the spine. But for your average trainee who isn't regularly busting your gut and going exceedingly heavy, say your goal is hypertrophy and muscle gain, then it may not necessarily be something you need. But yeah, I mean, if you're really pushing it, it may come in handy on max effort tests, because it will just kind of alleviate some of the pressure on the spine. I think one of the most important things is just ensuring that before you start looking towards using a belt to increase that pressure, that you can actually just breathe through your diaphragm. The amount of times I've trained someone in the gym and I've said before they drop into a squat or pick up a deadlift, and I've said to them, take a deep breath, their chest fills up. They don't generate any pressure from that deep breath using their diaphragm. I think mastering that kind of technique without necessarily squeezing your abs is probably the kind of thing you want to have down before you start training at the kind of intensity where a belt becomes necessary.
Cool. Dan?
Yeah, well, I can't really add too much to that, but when to wear a belt, yeah, when you're really going to get high in those numbers, low in those reps with, say, a deadlift or a squat. I've seen that help me and loads of people, obviously, with the strength. So it's just that aid there at the bottom of a squat or a deadlift.
Yeah,
That's where I've seen it.
I think when there's people like anti-belt, if you wear a belt, then you're not going to work your core, and it's like, well, something, use it when you're going for them sort of maximal lifts. Apart from that, yeah, just try and do it with not supported.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, so on our Q&A, we got you to type in some questions, and we had a time limit, so we're going to stick with the time limit because we wanted to keep it short and sweet. We're on like 25 minutes, 26 minutes now anyway. So Azra and Corey, we apologise. When we advertise the next one, please make sure you get those questions in nice and early. But apart from that, that's it, guys. So thanks from us, and we'll see you soon.
Cheers.
Bye.